My husband spent our savings on a surprise gift that ruined us. Anna Collins woke up to the soft gray light creeping around the edges of the worn curtains in their modest apartment. The old clock on her bedside table showed it was barely 7 in the morning. She rubbed her eyes and listened carefully before allowing herself to stretch lazily under the thin blanket. Across the room, the faint hum of an early morning news report drifted in from the small television sitting atop a battered wooden dresser. It was everything she knew and expected, simple, predictable, and just a little bit tired. To anyone outside, Anna was an ordinary woman leading an ordinary life in the small town where everyone knew your name and your business. She was the kind of person who greeted every neighbor with a smile, who held the door for strangers, who whispered thank you out loud when she caught someone's kindness. Humble by nature, she carried a quiet warmth that invited trust, even though her hands bore faint calluses from long hours at the local office as an administrative assistant. Long ago, she had given up the idea of grandeur for the hope of stability, dreaming instead of a modest life where her family could be safe, comfortable, and, above all, together. David, her husband of 5 years, was a contrasting figure, charming, quick with a joke, and, at times, unpredictable in ways that both excited and unnerved her. Their marriage wasn't perfect. No one's ever was, she often reminded herself. But it was built on fragile trust, a delicate balance. Anna believed deeply in that foundation, and the unspoken promise that they were partners equal in love, equal in hardship. That morning, while David still snored softly in bed, Anna shuffled toward the kitchen to start the day. Her footsteps echoed softly on the cracked linoleum floor as she reached into the cabinet for their meager supply of coffee. Her eyes caught the corner of an envelope she hadn't noticed before, tucked beneath a stack of unopened bills on the counter. It was a letter from the bank, something unusual. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded it and scanned the words. The note confirmed that their joint savings account had been completely emptied. Anna's heart slammed in her chest. Expense details followed, a large purchase made just days ago. A purchase with no warning, no discussion, only a sudden absence of the money they had painstakingly saved. Confused and suddenly frozen, Anna's mind raced back to every conversation with David about their failing finances. She searched her memory for any mention of this surprise. Nothing came up. Her throat tightened, not because she was angry yet, but because she felt the cold weight of betrayal. The very savings set aside for emergencies, for security, for the uncertain future, had vanished overnight, replaced by an extravagant gift she had yet to even see. When David stirred from sleep shortly after, Anna confronted him quietly but urgently. His eyes were bright, hopeful even, as he revealed the surprise he had planned to lift the shadows that had crept between them, a handcrafted, expensive piece of jewelry, a costly attempt at rekindling the spark they both feared had dimmed. The reality, however, slammed into Anna like a tidal wave. This was not a thoughtful gift born from mutual joy, it was financial recklessness, a wager against their future made without her consent. Her pulse quickened, and her vision blurred almost imperceptibly. She fought the sting of humiliation swelling inside as she imagined what others would think if they knew that their carefully maintained facade of a happy couple was backed by a precarious, nearly empty bank balance and a misguided gamble on love. What felt worse was the image of pity or judgment that might shadow her in the community, the quiet whispers about the woman whose husband wasted everything on a foolish act. Anna looked at David again, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of disbelief, sorrow, and quiet rage. "Why didn't you talk to me?" was all she could manage at first, her voice barely above a whisper. Wasn't the foundation of their marriage built on honesty? On respect? His apologetic shrug and hesitant confession offered little comfort. She knew the excuse would be the love he felt, the desire to fix something intangible by buying it. But it wasn't love, she reminded herself, it was selfishness, and it had consequences far beyond a shattered bank account. Minutes passed as the silence between them grew heavier, suffocating. Anna sat at their small kitchen table, her fingers clawing at the edges of a crumpled napkin. Her breath caught, and her thoughts spiraled into a chaos of fear and frustration so intense that tears pricked her eyes. This moment, the discovery of the empty savings, the shattering of trust, was more than money lost. It was the loss of the life she had worked quietly to build from nothing. "Could you have at least told me before?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling, terrified that the foundation she'd so carefully laid was cracking with a single careless move. David's face was a mixture of guilt and helplessness. Anna clenched her fists, biting back the urge to scream, to cry out not just for the money lost but for the respect she never felt she truly had anymore. For a woman who had always been the quiet glue holding their fragile world together, this was humiliation in its rawest form. Not just before the world, but before herself, a betrayal so deep it left her wondering if she even knew the man she had married. Yet amid the storm of feelings, a flicker of resilience kindled in her chest, faint but unmistakable. She would have to find a way through this. For herself. For their future. But would David be with her when the storm finally broke? As she sat alone, trying to make sense of a life upended in a single morning, Anna wondered, how do you rebuild when the foundation beneath you crumbles? How do you heal when someone you trusted jeopardizes the very life you worked so hard to secure? If you've ever faced betrayal wrapped in the guise of love, or felt powerless when your dreams were nearly stolen, you understand that first sting, the moment when everything feels broken. Have you ever had to confront the unbearable truth hidden behind a generous smile? Share your thoughts below. Sometimes, just knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. In the days that followed that terrible morning, the distance between Anna and David grew like a chasm neither of them dared cross. Anna tried to carry on with her routine, walking to work, filing papers, answering calls, but every keystroke, every meeting, every small interaction was shadowed by the weight she carried inside. At the office, where gossip traveled faster than the afternoon coffee break, subtle glances and hushed whispers wrapped around her like chains. She could almost hear their eyes piercing through her resolve. How could she not see what kind of man she married? How could she be so naive? The unspoken questions burrowed deep beneath her skin. One afternoon, as Anna climbed the creaky steps to the local grocery store, she heard a familiar voice behind her. The sharp, mocking tone was unmistakable. It was Marla, the wife of a prominent town councilman, and someone Anna had tried to avoid. "Oh, Anna, I heard about your little financial adventure," Marla said, tilting her head with feigned pity. "Going broke on some grand surprise? Seems like you two really don't have a clue about responsibility." Her lips curled into a smirk as she added, "Must be hard realizing your husband lacks the common sense to keep you both afloat." Anna felt her cheeks flare hot with humiliation, heat bubbling up in her chest like a wildfire she tried desperately to control. The weight of Marla's gaze, the judgment packed into those words, made her body shrink inward, collapsing beneath invisible eyes that judged her worth based on money and appearances. She opened her mouth but no words came, swallowed instead by the growing knot of shame. It was suffocating, this feeling of exposure, where every misstep inside their home was broadcast beyond their walls, paraded like a spectacle of failure. Returning home that evening, Anna saw David sitting on the cracked leather sofa, the gift's sleek box resting beside him. His face was marked with anxiety, eyes avoiding hers. "Can we talk?" she asked cautiously, every syllable weighed down with a mix of hurt and exhaustion. David nodded slowly, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were closing in on them. He began to explain, a tremor in his voice revealing the conflict inside. "I just thought, if I could make you happy, really happy, maybe things wouldn't feel so broken between us. I wanted to fix us, Anna." not cause more pain. But Anna's heart rebelled against his words. By spending every last dollar we had? By risking our future? Love isn't a gift card or an expensive necklace, David. It's trust, respect, partnership. Her voice cracked with the strain of holding back tears. As David tried to defend himself, Anna's mind rattled with a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Part of her wanted to scream at the recklessness, at the disregard for everything they'd sacrificed. Another part, a quieter, deeper part, felt the aching loneliness that came with realizing that the man she loved could hurt her so profoundly without even realizing the damage. The truth was agonizing. This wasn't just a financial mistake, it was a breach of the very bond that had kept them tethered. Over the next week, tension filled their home like a thick fog, days marked by cold silences, nights haunted by unspoken fears. Anna found herself retreating into the small world she controlled, avoiding phone calls, pushing away texts from concerned friends who felt compelled to comment on her marital crisis. Social gatherings became minefields, the weight of whispered questions and sideways glances crushed her spirit further. Even her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror betrayed her despair, eyes dulled and shadowed, lips tight with unresolved frustration. One afternoon, David invited her to dinner at a modest neighborhood diner, hoping to bridge the gap with a casual meal and some heartfelt conversation. Anna agreed reluctantly, sitting across from him beneath the harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. They spoke cautiously, their words tentative and raw. David apologized again, his voice thick with regret, but Anna's answers remained guarded, protective. Forgiveness felt like a distant, fragile gift, too heavy to claim her yet. As the night wore on, Anna's emotions churned in an unpredictable storm, confusion clashing with vulnerability, love wrestling bitterness, hope doused in doubt. She looked down at her hands folded tightly on the table, the trembling suggesting the anguish beneath her calm exterior. The chances of rebuilding felt slender, but she wanted to believe that love, somehow, would find a way through the wreckage. Still, the damage ran deeper than either of them wanted to admit. The savings were gone, sure, but it was the loss of faith, the shattering of mutual respect, that left Anna feeling truly defeated. She found herself haunted by flashes of humiliation, not just the gossip or the judgment, but the sinking sensation that she had failed to protect the life she so desperately wanted to hold on to. Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal disguised as love, or the isolation that comes when the people around you turn their backs? It's a heartache that runs beneath the surface, eroding your sense of self. Share your story. Sometimes opening the door to others' experiences helps us carry the heaviest burdens a little lighter. The days that followed the dinner at the diner were some of the hardest Anna had ever endured. She threw herself deeper into her work, hoping the routine would drown out the cacophony of doubts and fears invading her mind. But no matter how many papers she filed or phone calls she took, the gnawing emptiness inside her grew louder. On quiet evenings, when she was alone in their small apartment, the house seemed to close in around her, as if the walls themselves whispered reminders of all that was lost. The weight of disappointment pressed on her chest relentlessly, making it hard to breathe. Anna tried to straighten the pieces of her fractured life, yet every step forward seemed swallowed by stumbling setbacks. The creditors called more frequently now, their voices curt and impatient, reminding her of the mounting pressure that came with the vanished savings. With each passing call, a fresh anxiety took root, tightening its grip on her heart. She felt trapped, caught between the need to secure their future and the anguish of her husband's betrayal. Some nights, she would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the dreams she'd held onto so tightly were crumbling beyond repair. At work, whispers followed her like shadows. A few colleagues offered smiles and polite words, but there were others whose glance held subtle pity or even concealed judgment. Anna caught herself shrinking inside, fearful they saw the cracks beneath her calm facade. Even those she had once called friends began to keep their distance, their reactions ambiguous, leaving her feeling isolated. It was as if the scandal of their financial ruin had transformed her from a trusted presence into a cautionary tale whispered in break rooms. In the midst of this storm, Anna's self-confidence began to erode. She questioned everything, her choices, her judgment, her worth. Was I naive to trust him? She mused bitterly one afternoon, replaying moments between them in endless loops. Did I miss the signs? Was I too soft, too forgiving? These harsh self-assessments performed like a relentless drumbeat, shaking her at her core. Each time she wanted to confront David again, another wave of fear stopped her, fear of denial, of anger, of the unresolved pain festering between them. Yet in the depths of her loneliness, a spark of hope emerged. One rainy afternoon, while running an errand near her childhood home, Anna crossed paths with her Aunt Marie, a woman known in their family for her unwavering strength and sharp wisdom. Marie had lived a lifetime of hardships but wore resilience like armor, weathering storms that had left others broken. Seeing Anna's tear-streaked face, Marie didn't ask why. She just wrapped her arms around her niece, a solid anchor in a sea of uncertainty. "It's going to be okay, Anna," Marie said softly, her voice steady and calm. "You're stronger than you know. And you deserve happiness, not just empty promises or surprises that blindside your future. Sometimes, the fall is part of learning how to rise." Those words seeped into Anna's bruised spirit, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe there was a path forward. With Marie's quiet support, Anna began to untangle the toxic ties that had held her captive, not just in her marriage but also in friendships that had become draining or judgmental. She took small steps to rebuild herself, setting boundaries and seeking moments of peace amid chaos. Often, they sat together over cups of hot tea, Marie listening without judgment, helping Anna to find the strength buried beneath layers of doubt and shame. Still, the road to recovery was treacherous. There were nights when tears fell silently onto pillowcases soaked with whispered prayers, mornings when even standing felt too heavy a task. Her relationship with David remained fragile, punctuated by uneasy silences and cautious exchanges. "I don't know if I can trust you yet," Anna confessed during one difficult conversation, her voice trembling with vulnerability. "But I want to try." That willingness to try was a fragile lifeline, one that tethered her to a hope that healing might yet be possible. Occasionally, Anna caught fleeting glimpses of the woman she used to be, resilient, warm, full of quiet courage. Moments when she smiled genuinely during a lunch break or felt the sun on her face during a walk in the park. Those glimpses fueled her resolve to reclaim her life, her dignity, and her future. But the question lingered, was it possible to forgive, not just David, but herself? Could she accept that vulnerability didn't mean weakness, and that recovery wasn't linear but a journey filled with setbacks and triumphs alike? Have you ever felt the weight of failure so keenly that you question your very identity? What gave you the strength to face those dark moments? Sharing your story can light the way, not only for others, but for yourself. Sometimes, courage begins with simply reaching out. Anna's breaking point came quietly, on a chilly Saturday afternoon unlike any she'd anticipated. The morning had been spent in restless distraction, running errands, picking up dry cleaning, weaving through aisles of the local market, but as the day unfolded, a suffocating heaviness pressed down on her chest, a weight she could no longer shrug off. She returned home to an empty apartment. David was nowhere to be found. Her phone buzzed with a terse message, "I need time." "This isn't working." The coldness of those words sliced through her resolve. Alone, Anna sank to the worn couch, hands trembling as tears spilled silently down her face. The silence was deafening. The man she had clung to, the partner she tried to forgive and rebuild with, was walking away, not just physically but emotionally leaving her behind. The financial strain, the humiliation, the fracture in their marriage suddenly crystallized into a painful truth: she was utterly alone. Days blurred into nights, shadows stretching longer around her. Friends she'd reached out to turned answers into polite deflections. The empathy she once believed in faded beneath the surface of concerned looks and murmured condolences. In the quiet of that isolation, Anna's heart twisted with hopelessness. But then, from the depths of her despair, an unexpected light emerged. One afternoon, as she sat listlessly on the steps outside her aunt's modest home, a gentle knock at the door shifted her world. It was Dr. Sheila Parker, a local counselor and a longtime friend of the family who had quietly observed Anna's struggle from afar. Without ceremony, Sheila offered a warm smile and genuine compassion that Anna had not realized she needed so desperately. "You don't have to do this alone," Sheila said, sitting beside her on the wooden steps, the autumn leaves rustling softly around them. "Sometimes the hardest part is asking for help. Healing isn't about pretending everything is okay, it's about being honest with the pain and letting others in." With hesitant courage, Anna began attending therapy sessions, initially skeptical but gradually opening up to the process. The sessions became her sanctuary, a place where she could unravel the tangled threads of guilt, anger, and self-doubt without fear of judgment. Through the quiet guidance of Sheila, Anna learned to confront the shadows of her past and the fractures in her marriage not as failures but as opportunities for growth. Meanwhile, news of David's departure rippled through the small town, stirring whispers and speculation. But when the community expecting Anna to crumble instead saw her quietly recommit to herself, their opinions began to shift. Far from the broken woman many assumed she was, Anna's resilience became an unspoken inspiration to others who had faced their own trials behind closed doors. Then came the day that turned everything on its head. While sorting through old boxes in the attic, Anna stumbled upon a bundle of unopened letters, hidden beneath years of forgotten memories. Among them were detailed correspondences between David and a financial advisor, letters that revealed a sinister truth. David had been secretly funneling money to cover debts from a failed business venture, one he had concealed from Anna until it was too late. His lavish gift had not just been a reckless surprise, it was a desperate attempt to mask a deeper web of lies. Confronted with this revelation, Anna felt shock ripple through her. The betrayal was deeper and wider than she'd imagined, yet it also brought clarity. The man she had loved was not the partner she thought he was. At the same time, this knowledge fueled a fire within her, a determination to reclaim control over her life. When David unexpectedly returned one evening, seeking forgiveness and promising change, Anna met him not with tears but with quiet strength. She told him the truth about what she had discovered. The conversation that followed was raw and painful, eyes locked onto a future that might never be shared. But this time, Anna's voice did not waver. She understood her worth and refused to be tied to broken promises or false apologies. As word spread, even those who had doubted her began to see Anna in a new light, not as a victim, but as a woman who refused to be defined by her pain. That transformation inspired quiet conversations in coffee shops and behind closed doors, a ripple effect of courage rising from the ashes of humiliation. Have you ever uncovered a hidden truth that forever changed how you see someone or yourself? How do you find the strength to face deception and still keep your heart open to healing? Let us know. Sometimes sharing these revelations is the first step to freedom. The confrontation with David was nothing like Anna had imagined in the nights she spent replaying scenarios in her mind. Instead of a heated argument or desperate pleas for reconciliation, it unfolded with a quiet, resolute determination that surprised even herself. They sat across from one another in the dimly lit living room, the air thick with unspoken tension. The once hopeful warmth between them had cooled into a fragile, strained silence. Anna's voice was steady as she laid out the facts, the secretly hidden debts, the reckless gamble with their savings, the betrayals that ran deeper than the glittering necklace and its empty promises. David's face, once bold and confident, now flickered with defeat and regret. "I never meant to hurt you," he muttered, eyes downcast. "I thought I was protecting us." "No, David," Anna replied, shaking her head. "You betrayed more than just our bank account. You broke the trust that held us together." Her hands instinctively clenched into fists at her sides, a physical reminder of the strength she was calling upon. "But this isn't just about what you did, it's about what I'm willing to accept from now on. I won't let this define me, nor will I let it define my future." The conversation marked a turning point. David, confronted with the sheer weight of his actions, agreed to seek help for his financial recklessness and the deeper issues that had forced him into secrecy. Anna, meanwhile, refused to be a bystander in her own life story. She insisted on being part of every step moving forward, every payment plan negotiated, every counseling session searched out. Her newfound resolve cascaded through every decision, empowering her to reclaim control over the life she had nearly lost. In the weeks that followed, Anna began making steady progress toward paying off the debts that had threatened to unravel her world. She took on extra hours at work, and with meticulous budgeting and a support network that had slowly rebuilt, the mountain of financial strain started to shrink. More importantly, she rediscovered her voice, once quiet and overshadowed, now clear and unwavering. At the community center, Anna found herself volunteering to help others facing financial hardship, a role that surprised many who had known her as passive or resigned. Sharing her story in discreet support groups, she became a beacon of resilience, showing others that mistakes and betrayals, no matter how deep, aren't the end, but the beginning of healing and empowerment. David's path remained uncertain, their relationship was fragile, stitched together by fragile threads of forgiveness that required constant tending. Yet, Anna's growth was undeniable. Friends she had feared lost to the scandal returned, drawn not only by her bravery but by the genuine transformation they witnessed. Where once there had been whispers and side glances, now there was quiet respect and sometimes admiration. Yet amid the progress, Anna faced moments of vulnerability, nights when the loneliness threatened to reclaim her, when the temptation to shut down entirely loomed large. Those moments reminded her that healing was not linear, and that strength came from accepting every part of the process, the triumphs and the setbacks alike. Her family rallied around her, especially Aunt Marie, whose steady presence was a fortress in stormy seas. "You're not defined by the fall, Anna," Marie reminded her gently during one visit. "You're defined by how you stand back up." Anna smiled through tears, understanding now that her journey had been about more than just financial recovery or marital turmoil. It was about rediscovering herself, her worth, her dignity, her unbreakable spirit. She no longer needed the approval or validation that had once consumed her, because she had found something far more precious, self-respect forged in the fires of adversity. Before long, Anna's efforts culminated in a quiet but profound victory, the settlement of the last debt. The relief was immediate, washing over her like a soft tide, filling the spaces where anxiety had lived for so long. With clear finances and a heart mending from betrayal, Anna felt ready to look forward again. If you have ever faced the daunting task of rebuilding your life from shattered trust and broken dreams, know that there is strength in every step forward. What helped you find resilience when the path seemed impossible? Your story might be the hope someone else needs. Please share it with us. Time, as Anna learned, has a way of healing wounds in its own quiet rhythm, not by erasing the past, but by allowing space for growth, acceptance, and new beginnings. Months after settling the last debt and stepping into a space of financial stability, Anna found herself standing at the threshold of a life she had fought relentlessly to reclaim. The woman who once felt broken beneath the weight of betrayal now stood taller, grounded in hard-won confidence and self-love. Her apartment, once a place heavy with silence and sorrow, now blossomed with warm light filtering through freshly cleaned windows. Plants rested on windowsills, brought in by Anna herself, a symbolic promise to nurture life even in the smallest corners. She spent evenings journaling, laughter gradually returning in conversations with friends who had returned, drawn to her genuine spirit and inspiring resilience. Those friendships, rebuilt on truth and respect, became a new kind of foundation, a mosaic of hope and trust. Anna's relationship with David had transformed into something more honest, though fragile. They continued to meet, not as lovers bound only by past vows, but as two individuals navigating the complex threads of forgiveness, growth, and personal accountability. While the future remained unwritten, Anna no longer feared the unknown. She had learned that trust must be earned, and love must be a partnership of equals, woven with respect and open hearts. Reflecting on her journey, Anna understood that the greatest gift had come from within. The humbling pain of betrayal and loss had unearthed a strength she never knew she possessed. She had learned to value herself beyond circumstance, to hold her own worth as sacred. The richest treasures in her life were no longer material but rooted in resilience, authenticity, and self-compassion. Her story became one she shared quietly at community gatherings, in support groups, and with anyone willing to listen. Anna's message was clear: everyone faces storms, but those storms do not define us. It is how we choose to stand in the rain, how we let it refine rather than destroy us, that shapes our true character. Her experience taught her and others that love built on understanding and respect can weather even the fiercest tempests, and that sometimes, the most surprising gifts are the ones we give ourselves. As Anna looked to the horizon, she felt gratitude, not for a perfect life, but for a life authentic in all its messiness and beauty. She had reclaimed her narrative, turning a chapter once defined by humiliation into one celebrating empowerment. And she knew that, no matter what lay ahead, she possessed the courage and clarity to face it with an open heart and steady spirit. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and join our community of warriors who find strength in vulnerability and hope in every new dawn. See you in our next story.